Sarah Martinez had been living on the streets of downtown Chicago for almost 8 months. At just 19 years old, she carried everything she owned in a worn backpack that had seen better days. Her clothes were clean but clearly secondhand, and her shoes had holes that she tried to cover with duct tape. Despite her circumstances, Sarah maintained a dignity that caught people's attention. She never begged aggressively or made others uncomfortable. Instead, she would sit quietly near the subway entrance with a small cardboard sign that simply read, "Anything helps. God bless." The winter of 2023 was particularly harsh in Chicago. Temperatures dropped below freezing for weeks, and finding warm shelter became a daily struggle. Sarah had learned to survive by staying near heated building entrances, spending time in public libraries during the day, and occasionally finding refuge in 24-hour diners when she could afford a cup of coffee. Her stomach often growled with hunger, but she had developed a routine of eating one small meal a day, usually from a dollar menu or food pantry. On this particular Tuesday morning in February, Sarah noticed an elderly woman struggling near the bus stop. The woman appeared to be in her 70s with silver hair neatly arranged despite the wind. She wore an expensive-looking coat, but something was clearly wrong. The woman was fumbling through her purse with shaking hands, looking increasingly distressed. Her face was pale, and she seemed unsteady on her feet. Sarah watched from across the street as other pedestrians hurried past the woman, too busy with their own lives to notice her distress. The businessman checking his phone, the mother pushing a stroller, the teenagers laughing together. They all seemed oblivious to the elderly woman's predicament. Sarah felt a familiar tug in her heart, the same feeling that had gotten her into trouble before. Her grandmother had always taught her that helping others was more important than helping yourself, even when you had nothing to give. Without hesitation, Sarah crossed the busy street, dodging between cars and ignoring the honking horns. She approached the elderly woman carefully, not wanting to startle her. "Excuse me, ma'am," Sarah said gently. "Are you okay? You look like you might need some help." The woman looked up, and Sarah could see tears forming in her worried eyes. "Oh dear," the woman said with a shaky voice. "I think I've made a terrible mistake. I got on the wrong bus, and now I don't know where I am. I'm supposed to meet my son for my doctor's appointment, but I'm completely lost. I don't have a cell phone, and I can't find anyone to help me." Sarah's heart went out to the woman immediately. "What's your son's name? Maybe we can figure out how to reach him," she offered, despite not having a phone herself. The woman explained that her son was Michael Chen, and they were supposed to meet at Northwestern Memorial Hospital for her chemotherapy treatment. She had been battling cancer for 6 months, and this was a crucial appointment she couldn't miss. The mention of chemotherapy hit Sarah hard. Her own grandmother had fought cancer before passing away 2 years earlier. It was actually her grandmother's medical bills that had led to Sarah losing her apartment and eventually ending up homeless. She remembered the fear and confusion that came with cancer treatment, and she couldn't bear the thought of this kind woman missing such an important appointment. "Don't worry," Sarah said with determination. "We'll figure this out together. The hospital isn't too far from here. Do you have the strength to walk a few blocks, or should we try to find another way?" The elderly woman, whose name was Margaret Chen, looked at Sarah with surprise. Here was this young girl, clearly homeless and struggling herself, offering to help a complete stranger. Margaret had lived through enough to recognize genuine kindness when she saw it, and something about Sarah's sincere concern touched her deeply. "I can try to walk," Margaret replied, "but I'm not very steady today. The medication makes me dizzy sometimes." Sarah immediately offered her arm for support. "Lean on me," she said. "I'm stronger than I look." Together, they began the slow journey toward Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Sarah shortened her normal long strides to match Margaret's careful steps, constantly checking to make sure the older woman was comfortable and stable. Along the way, Margaret shared more about her situation. She explained that her son Michael was a successful businessman who had been incredibly supportive throughout her cancer journey. He usually drove her to appointments, but today he had an important meeting that ran long, so they had planned to meet at the hospital instead. Margaret had taken public transportation countless times before, but the stress of her illness and medication had made her more confused than usual. Sarah listened intently, offering encouraging words and making sure Margaret felt safe. As they walked, Sarah shared small stories about her grandmother's cancer battle, helping Margaret feel less alone in her struggle. She didn't mention her own homelessness or difficult circumstances, focusing entirely on making Margaret feel comfortable and supported. The journey to the hospital took nearly 40 minutes, much longer than it would have taken a healthy person. They had to stop several times for Margaret to rest, and once when she felt particularly dizzy. Each time, Sarah was patient and supportive, never showing any sign of impatience or frustration. She even used some of her last few dollars to buy Margaret a bottle of water when she mentioned feeling dehydrated. When they finally arrived at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Margaret was visibly exhausted but grateful beyond words. The automatic doors opened, and the warmth of the hospital lobby was a welcome relief from the cold February wind. Sarah helped Margaret to the reception desk and made sure she was properly checked in for her appointment. As they waited for Margaret's son to arrive, Sarah stayed by her side, continuing their gentle conversation and providing emotional support. Margaret kept expressing her gratitude, but Sarah simply smiled and said it was what anyone would have done. Deep down, both women knew that wasn't true. In a world where people often looked the other way, Sarah had chosen compassion over convenience, kindness over self-preservation. Neither of them knew that this simple act of human decency would soon change both their lives in ways they could never imagine. Michael Chen rushed through the hospital corridors, his expensive Italian leather shoes clicking against the polished floor. His tailored suit was slightly wrinkled from the stress of the day, and his normally perfectly styled hair showed signs of him running his hands through it repeatedly. The board meeting had run 2 hours longer than expected, and he was consumed with guilt about being late for his mother's chemotherapy appointment. At 35, Michael had built a technology empire worth over $2 billion. His company, Chen Innovations, had revolutionized cloud computing and artificial intelligence applications. Despite his massive success, nothing mattered more to him than his mother's health. Since her cancer diagnosis 6 months ago, he had rearranged his entire schedule around her treatments, often leaving important meetings early or delegating crucial decisions to his trusted team. As he approached the oncology waiting area, Michael's eyes scanned the room frantically. His mother was usually easy to spot. She always arrived early and sat in the same corner chair, reading one of her mystery novels. But today, something was different. He found her sitting near the window, engaged in animated conversation with a young woman he didn't recognize. The young woman appeared to be around 19 or 20 years old. Her clothes were clean but clearly well worn, and Michael's trained eye immediately noticed the quality difference between her outfit and the expensive garments worn by most patients and families in this upscale medical facility. Despite her modest appearance, there was something striking about her, an inner light that seemed to radiate warmth and genuine care. Margaret looked up and saw her son approaching. "Michael," she called out with more energy than she had shown in weeks. "You're not going to believe what happened today. This angel helped me when I got completely lost." Michael's attention immediately shifted to Sarah, who had stood up respectfully as he approached. She extended her hand politely and said, "You must be Michael. Your mother has told me so much about you. I'm Sarah." "I can't thank you enough," Michael began, but Margaret interrupted him with enthusiasm. "Michael, let me tell you what happened," Margaret said, her eyes bright with excitement. "I got on the wrong bus this morning and ended up completely lost downtown. I was so confused and scared, and everyone was just walking past me like I was invisible. But Sarah saw that I needed help and spent her entire morning getting me here safely." Margaret went on to describe their journey, how Sarah had offered her arm for support, bought her water with her own money, and stayed with her to make sure she was comfortable. As his mother spoke, Michael studied Sarah's face, noticing how she seemed almost embarrassed by the praise and kept trying to downplay her actions. "It really wasn't anything special," Sarah said modestly. "Your mother needed help and I was there. Anyone would have done the same thing." Michael knew that wasn't true. In his experience, most people were too busy or too self-absorbed to help a stranger, especially one who might slow them down or inconvenience them. The fact that this young woman had spent hours of her day helping his mother, especially when she clearly had her own struggles, spoke to a character that was increasingly rare in the world. "Where do you live, Sarah?" Michael asked, genuinely curious about this remarkable young woman. Sarah hesitated for a moment, and Michael caught the flash of uncertainty in her eyes. "I'm between places right now," she said carefully, "but I managed just fine." Margaret, with the perceptiveness that came from decades of life experience, seemed to understand what Sarah wasn't saying. She reached over and gently took Sarah's hand. "Dear, are you saying you don't have a proper place to stay?" Sarah's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, but she maintained her dignity. "I've been through some tough times recently, but I'm working on getting back on my feet. Please don't worry about me. I'm more concerned about making sure you get the care you need." Michael felt a wave of emotion wash over him. This young woman, who was clearly facing homelessness, had spent her morning helping his mother without any expectation of reward or recognition. She had used her own limited resources to buy his mother water and had provided emotional support during what could have been a frightening experience. Nurse appeared and called Margaret's name for her appointment. As Margaret prepared to go back for her treatment, she turned to Sarah with tears in her eyes. "I wish there was something I could do to repay your kindness," she said. "Just focus on getting better," Sarah replied warmly. "That's all the repayment I need." Michael walked his mother to the treatment area, but his mind was racing. During the few minutes they had together before the nurses took over, Margaret continued to praise Sarah's character and kindness. "Michael," she said seriously, "in all my years I've rarely met someone with such a pure heart. That girl has nothing, but she gave me everything she had to offer today." After settling his mother with the medical team, Michael returned to the waiting area, hoping Sarah might still be there. He found her sitting quietly in the same chair, looking out the window at the busy Chicago streets. She appeared to be lost in thought, and Michael wondered what challenges she was facing in her daily life. "Sarah," he said gently as he approached, "do you have a few minutes to talk?" She looked up, surprised that he had returned. "Of course. How is your mother doing?" "She's in good hands," Michael replied, taking the seat next to her. "I wanted to talk about what you did today. My mother means everything to me, and knowing that you helped her when she was scared and confused, I can't express how grateful I am." Sarah smiled softly. "She's a wonderful woman. She reminds me of my grandmother." "Tell me about yourself, Sarah. What's your story?" For the next 30 minutes, Sarah shared pieces of her life with Michael. She spoke about growing up with her grandmother after her parents died in a car accident when she was 12. She described how her grandmother had worked multiple jobs to support them, and how they had been incredibly close. When her grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, Sarah had dropped out of college to care for her full-time. The medical bills had been overwhelming, even with insurance. Sarah had spent their savings, sold everything valuable they owned, and eventually lost their apartment trying to pay for experimental treatments that might have saved her grandmother's life. When her grandmother passed away 2 years ago, Sarah was left with nothing but debt and grief. Since then, she had been trying to rebuild her life, working odd jobs when she could find them, and staying in shelters or on the streets when necessary. She had applied for dozens of permanent positions, but found it difficult to get hired without a stable address or appropriate interview clothes. Throughout her story, Sarah never complained or asked for pity. She spoke matter-of-factly about her circumstances while emphasizing the positive memories of her grandmother and her determination to create a better future for herself. Michael was struck by her resilience, her lack of bitterness, and her unwavering optimism despite facing circumstances that would have broken many people. As Sarah finished her story, Michael made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He had built his fortune through recognizing potential and taking calculated risks, and he recognized something special in this remarkable young woman. More importantly, he had witnessed her character firsthand through her treatment of his mother, and he knew that true character was far more valuable than any resume or credential. Michael sat in silence for several moments after Sarah finished her story, processing everything she had shared. As a businessman, he was accustomed to making quick decisions based on available information, but this situation touched him on a level that went far beyond business logic. He was looking at a young woman who had sacrificed everything for family, lost everything to circumstances beyond her control, and still found the strength to help others without expecting anything in return. "Sarah," Michael said finally, his voice thick with emotion, "what you did for my mother today, most people wouldn't have even noticed she needed help, let alone spent hours making sure she was safe. But you did that while dealing with your own incredibly difficult situation?" Sarah shook her head modestly. "I just did what felt right. Your mother was scared and lost, and I've been in situations where I felt the same way. I know how much it means when someone shows they care." Michael's throat tightened as he thought about his own mother, probably sitting in a treatment room at that very moment, receiving chemicals that might save her life. The idea that she could have been lost and frightened on the streets of Chicago, with hundreds of people walking past her without stopping, made him feel physically ill. If not for Sarah's intervention, his mother might have missed her crucial treatment or worse. "Can I ask you something personal?" Michael said gently. "When was the last time you had a proper meal?" Sarah hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "I eat," she said simply. "I manage fine." "That's not what I asked," Michael pressed, but not unkindly. "When did you last have a full proper meal?" Sarah looked down at her hands, and Michael could see she was struggling with whether to be honest. Finally, she whispered, 3 days ago. I had some soup at a shelter." Michael felt his heart break a little more. This remarkable young woman had used some of her last few dollars to buy his mother water, had spent hours helping her when she should have been looking for work or food for herself, and had done it all with grace and dignity. He thought about his own life, the expensive meals he took for granted, the comfortable bed he slept in every night, the security of knowing he would never have to worry about basic necessities. "Sarah, I want to help you," Michael said earnestly. "Not because I feel sorry for you, but because I believe in you. What you've shown me today proves that you're the kind of person who makes the world better just by being in it." "I appreciate that, Mr. Chen, but I don't need charity," Sarah replied, her pride evident despite her circumstances. "I'll figure things out on my own." "This isn't charity," Michael said firmly. "This is opportunity. I run a large company, and I'm always looking for people with integrity, compassion, and work ethic. You've demonstrated all 3 qualities in the past few hours more clearly than most people do in years of interviews." Sarah looked skeptical, as if she couldn't believe someone would offer her a job based on one encounter. "Mr. Chen, I appreciate your kindness, but I don't have a college degree anymore, and I haven't had a permanent address or professional references in 2 years. No one's going to hire me for anything important." Michael leaned forward, his business mind now fully engaged alongside his emotional response. "Sarah, let me tell you something about success. I've hired hundreds of people over the years. People with impressive degrees from prestigious schools. People with perfect resumes and glowing references. But do you know what I've learned? Skills can be taught, but character cannot. You can't train someone to care about others the way you cared about my mother today. You can't teach someone to maintain dignity and kindness while facing the challenges you've overcome." He paused, watching her face carefully. "I've also learned that some of the most successful people in business are those who've faced real adversity. They understand value, they don't take opportunities for granted, and they work harder than people who've had everything handed to them." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, and Michael could see she was wrestling with hope and skepticism. Finally, she said, "What kind of opportunity are you talking about?" Michael smiled, recognizing the spark of interest despite her caution. "First, let's address your immediate needs. You need a safe place to stay, proper meals and clothes appropriate for a professional environment. Those aren't gifts, they're investments in your potential." "Mr. Chen, I can't accept—" "Please call me Michael," he interrupted gently. "And let me finish. I'm not offering you handouts. I'm offering you a chance to earn your way to a better life. My company has several entry-level positions that could be perfect for someone with your determination. We also have educational programs that could help you finish your degree while you work." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back quickly. "Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me." Michael thought about his mother, probably halfway through her chemotherapy treatment by now, safe and cared for because of this young woman's kindness. He thought about his own grandmother, who had immigrated to America with nothing and built a life through hard work and the occasional kindness of strangers. He thought about the values his parents had instilled in him, that success meant nothing if you didn't use it to help others. "I know enough," Michael said simply. "I know you have integrity because you helped my mother without any expectation of reward. I know you're loyal because you sacrificed your future to care for your grandmother. I know you're resilient because you've survived 2 years of homelessness without losing your compassion or dignity. And I know you're hardworking because you've been trying to rebuild your life despite facing obstacles that would have defeated most people." He pulled out his business card and wrote his personal cell phone number on the back. "I want you to think about this tonight. Tomorrow morning, if you're interested, call me. We'll start with getting you settled somewhere safe. And then we'll talk about your future. Sarah took the card with trembling hands. Michael, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet, Michael replied. Just promise me you'll consider it. You've already given my family more than you know. Let me give you the chance to build the life you deserve. Just then a nurse approached and told Michael that his mother's treatment was finished and she was ready to go home. Michael stood up, but before leaving he turned back to Sarah. There's one more thing, he said, reaching into his wallet. This is not charity, it's payment for services rendered. You provided professional-level care and assistance to my mother today, and that deserves compensation. He handed her several $100 bills. This is what I would have paid a professional caregiver for the same services. Use it for a hotel room tonight, a good meal, and anything else you need. And Sarah, don't let anyone make you feel ashamed for accepting help. You've earned this. As Michael walked toward the treatment area to collect his mother, he felt a profound sense of purpose that he hadn't experienced in years. Building his company had been fulfilling, but this felt different, more personal and more meaningful. He had the power to change someone's life, and not just anyone, someone who had proven herself worthy of that investment through her own selfless actions. Behind him, Sarah sat staring at the business card and the money in her hands, hardly able to believe what had just happened. For the first time in 2 years, she dared to hope that her life might be about to change in ways she had never imagined possible. That evening, Sarah sat in a warm hotel room for the first time in nearly 2 years. She had chosen a modest but clean establishment near downtown Chicago, spending only a fraction of what Michael had given her despite his encouragement to treat herself well. Old habits of frugality and survival were hard to break, even when facing the possibility of a completely new life. After taking the longest, hottest shower she had enjoyed since becoming homeless, Sarah sat on the bed wrapped in the hotel's plush bathrobe and stared at Michael's business card. The weight of the opportunity he had offered felt almost overwhelming. Part of her wondered if it was all too good to be true, if she would wake up tomorrow and discover it had all been a dream. She had learned to be cautious during her time on the streets. People had made promises before, shelter workers who said they could help her find permanent housing that never materialized, potential employers who seemed interested until they learned about her situation, even well-meaning strangers who offered help but disappeared when the reality of her circumstances became clear. But something about Michael felt different. There had been genuine emotion in his eyes when he spoke about her helping his mother. His offer hadn't felt like pity or guilt. It felt like recognition, as if he saw something in her that she had almost forgotten existed. Sarah thought about her grandmother, remembering the countless conversations they had shared about character, integrity, and the importance of treating others with kindness regardless of your own circumstances. Her grandmother had often said that opportunities came to those who were prepared to receive them. But that preparation meant more than just skills or education. It meant maintaining your values and dignity even in the darkest times. What would you do, Grandma? Sarah whispered to the empty room. She could almost hear her grandmother's voice. You helped that boy's mother because it was right, not because you expected anything in return. Now someone wants to help you because they see who you really are. Don't let pride keep you from accepting a blessing. The next morning, Sarah woke before dawn. A habit developed from months of needing to move before security guards or police asked her to leave wherever she had been sleeping. She had the best night's rest she could remember. But old anxieties still gripped her as she contemplated making the phone call that could change everything. She used the hotel's business center to research Chen Innovations online, learning more about Michael's company and his reputation. What she discovered amazed her. The company was known not only for its technological innovations, but also for its ethical business practices and charitable contributions. Employee reviews consistently praised the company culture and Michael's leadership style. Several articles mentioned his commitment to giving people second chances and promoting from within based on merit rather than just credentials. At exactly 9 o'clock, Sarah dialed Michael's personal number with trembling fingers. Sarah? Michael answered on the first ring, as if he had been waiting for her call. Yes, it's me, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been thinking about your offer all night. And what have you decided? Sarah took a deep breath. I want to accept your help, but I need you to know that I intend to earn everything you give me. I don't want charity, even from someone as kind as you. Michael's relief was evident in his voice. I wouldn't expect anything less from you. Can you meet me at my office this afternoon? We'll discuss the details and get you started on the right path. 2 hours later, Sarah stood in front of the imposing glass tower that housed Chen Innovations. She had used some of Michael's money to buy a simple but professional outfit from a nearby department store: a navy blue blazer, white blouse, and matching pants. They weren't expensive, but they were clean, well-fitted, and made her feel more confident than she had in years. The company's lobby was stunning, with modern art installations and comfortable seating areas where employees and visitors gathered in small groups. Sarah noticed immediately that people seemed relaxed and friendly, quite different from the cold, intimidating atmosphere she had expected in a billionaire's headquarters. Michael's assistant, a warm woman named Patricia, greeted Sarah personally and escorted her to the executive floor. "Mr. Chen has told me about what you did for his mother," Patricia said as they rode the elevator. "That was truly wonderful of you. Mrs. Chen means the world to him, and knowing she was in good hands must have given him tremendous peace of mind." Michael's office was spacious but not ostentatious, with comfortable seating areas and windows offering spectacular views of the Chicago skyline. The walls were decorated with family photos, employee recognition awards, and artwork created by local artists. It felt more like a living room than a corporate office. "Sarah," Michael greeted her with genuine warmth. "You look wonderful. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in years," Sarah admitted. "Thank you for making that possible." Michael gestured for her to sit in one of the comfortable chairs near his desk. "I've been thinking about your situation, and I have several ideas for how we can move forward. But first I want you to meet someone." A few minutes later, Patricia escorted a middle-aged woman into the office. She was professionally dressed but had a kind, approachable demeanor that immediately put Sarah at ease. "Sarah, this is Jennifer Matthews, our Director of Human Resources and Employee Development. Jennifer, this is the remarkable young woman I told you about." Jennifer shook Sarah's hand warmly. "Michael shared your story with me, and I have to say, your kindness toward Mrs. Chen speaks volumes about your character. We're excited about the possibility of having you join our team." Over the next hour, Jennifer outlined several options for Sarah. The company had entry-level positions in customer service, administrative support, and data analysis that would provide steady income and benefits while allowing her to develop new skills. More importantly, Chen Innovations had partnerships with local colleges that would allow Sarah to complete her degree while working, with the company covering tuition costs. "We believe in investing in our people," Jennifer explained. "Many of our current executives started in entry-level positions and worked their way up. We promote based on performance, dedication, and character, qualities you've already demonstrated." Sarah listened carefully to every detail, asking thoughtful questions and taking notes. She was particularly interested in the customer service role, which would allow her to help solve problems for clients while developing communication and technical skills that could open doors to advancement. "There's one more thing," Michael added as the meeting concluded. "Housing. I know you need a stable address, and I've arranged for you to have a fully furnished apartment in a safe neighborhood. The rent will be deducted from your salary over time, so you're not accepting charity. You're entering into a rental agreement with manageable terms." Sarah felt tears well up in her eyes despite her efforts to maintain composure. "Michael, I don't know how to thank you for this opportunity." "You already thanked me," Michael replied. "When you helped my mother, you showed me that there are still people in this world who do the right thing, simply because it's right. That's worth more than any business deal or contract I've ever signed." Jennifer handed Sarah a folder containing employment documents, apartment lease information, and a schedule for the next week. "You'll start with orientation on Monday. We'll spend the first few days getting you settled and familiar with our systems. Don't worry about being nervous. Everyone here wants to see you succeed." As Sarah prepared to leave, Michael walked her to the door. "Sarah, I want you to remember something. This opportunity isn't because I feel sorry for you. It's because I recognize potential when I see it. You have qualities that can't be taught: integrity, compassion, resilience. Everything else is just training." That evening, as Sarah unpacked her few belongings in her new apartment, she felt a sense of hope that had been absent from her life for far too long. The apartment was small but beautiful, with large windows, modern appliances, and furniture that felt like luxury after months of having nothing. She called the hospital to check on Margaret's condition and was delighted to learn that her treatment had gone well. As she hung up the phone, Sarah realized that helping Margaret hadn't just changed her own life. It had restored her faith in the possibility that kindness could be rewarded, that good people still existed in the world, and that sometimes, when you help others without expecting anything in return, the universe finds a way to help you too. 6 months after Sarah's first day at Chen Innovations, Michael stood in the employee break room watching her interact with her colleagues during their lunch break. She was laughing at something her teammate had said, while helping a newer employee understand a complex customer service protocol. The transformation in Sarah was remarkable, but what struck Michael most was that her fundamental kindness and generosity hadn't changed at all. They had simply found a proper environment in which to flourish. Sarah had exceeded every expectation from her very first week. Her natural empathy made her exceptional at customer service, as she genuinely cared about solving people's problems and never treated any issue as too small or unimportant. Her colleagues quickly recognized her as someone they could count on, whether for covering a shift, helping with a difficult client, or simply providing emotional support during stressful days. Within 3 months, Sarah had been promoted to a senior customer service role with additional responsibilities training new hires. Her supervisors consistently praised her work ethic, positive attitude, and ability to remain calm under pressure. But beyond her professional accomplishments, Sarah had become an integral part of the company culture, organizing charity drives and volunteering activities that brought employees together for meaningful causes. Michael had made it a point to check on Sarah's progress regularly, but not in an overbearing way. He would occasionally stop by her department, attend company events where she was involved, and receive updates from Jennifer Matthews about her performance and development. What he observed filled him with pride and confirmed his initial instincts about her character. "She's remarkable, Michael," Jennifer had told him during their most recent meeting. "I've never seen someone adapt so quickly while maintaining such authenticity. Her colleagues don't just respect her, they genuinely care about her, and she returns that feeling completely." Sarah had also resumed her college education through the company's partnership program, taking evening and weekend classes to complete her degree in business administration. Her professors were impressed by her maturity, real-world experience, and unique perspective on customer relations and business ethics. She often shared insights from her time working with people from all walks of life, including her experiences with homelessness, which brought valuable perspective to theoretical discussions. Michael's mother, Margaret, had become one of Sarah's closest friends and strongest supporters. Her cancer treatment was progressing well, and she attributed much of her positive attitude to the friendship she had developed with the young woman who had helped her that frightening day at the bus stop. Margaret insisted on having dinner with Sarah at least once a week, and their conversations had become a highlight for both women. "You know, Michael," Margaret had told her son recently, "Sarah reminds me of your grandmother. The same inner strength, the same commitment to helping others even when life gets difficult. But there's something else about her, something special that I think you've recognized too." Margaret was right. Michael had begun to see Sarah not just as an employee he had helped, but as someone who had profoundly impacted his own life and perspective. Watching her rebuild her life with such grace and determination had reminded him why he had started his business in the first place: to create opportunities for people to achieve their potential and build meaningful lives. One Thursday evening, Michael was working late when he noticed Sarah was still at her desk, despite her shift having ended hours earlier. He approached her workstation and found her carefully reviewing customer feedback surveys and preparing detailed reports about ways to improve service delivery. "Sarah, what are you still doing here?" Michael asked gently. "Your shift ended at 5 o'clock. Sarah looked up, startled. "Oh, hi, Michael. I was just working on some ideas for improving our customer onboarding process. I've noticed some patterns in the feedback that suggest we could make the experience even better for new clients." Michael sat down in the chair next to her desk. "That's excellent initiative, but you don't need to work unpaid overtime to contribute ideas. We have formal processes for employee suggestions, and your insights are valuable enough to be compensated." "I don't mind," Sarah replied earnestly. "This company has given me everything: a job, a home, a future, friends who care about me. If I can find ways to make us better, it feels like the least I can do." Michael felt that familiar stirring of emotion that Sarah seemed to inspire in him. Even after achieving stability and success, she remained focused on how she could contribute rather than what more she could receive. It was a quality he rarely encountered, even among his most senior executives. "Sarah, can I ask you something personal?" Michael said. "Are you happy?" "I mean really happy, not just grateful for the opportunity." Sarah considered the question carefully. "I'm happier than I ever thought possible when I was living on the streets," she said. "But it's more than just having security and comfort. I feel like I'm becoming the person my grandmother always believed I could be. I'm using my experiences to help other people. I'm learning new things every day, and I'm part of something bigger than myself." She paused, looking around the office that had become her second home. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. 6 months ago, I was spending my days trying to find enough food to survive. Now I'm helping solve business problems and making plans for finishing my degree. It feels like a miracle." "It's not a miracle," Michael said firmly. "It's what happens when someone with your character gets the opportunity they deserve. You've earned everything you've achieved here." Michael stood up to leave, but then turned back. "Sarah, there's something I want you to consider. We're expanding our customer relations department, and I think you'd be perfect to head up a new division focused on customer experience innovation. It would mean a significant promotion, a substantial salary increase, and the chance to implement some of those ideas you're working on tonight." Sarah's eyes widened with surprise and excitement. "Michael, I don't know what to say. Are you sure I'm ready for something like that?" "I'm absolutely certain," Michael replied. "You understand our customers better than anyone, because you understand what it feels like to need help. You've proven you can lead and inspire others, and most importantly, you have the integrity to make decisions that are right for the company and right for our clients, even when they might be difficult." As Michael walked back to his office, he reflected on how much his life had changed since that day at the hospital. Helping Sarah rebuild her life had given him a sense of purpose that transcended business success. More than that, Sarah's presence in the company had influenced the entire culture, inspiring other employees to be more compassionate, more collaborative, and more committed to excellence. He thought about the upcoming board meeting where he would need to present quarterly results and strategic plans. For the first time in years, he was excited to share not just financial metrics, but stories about human potential and the power of investing in people who demonstrated character over credentials. Michael also thought about his mother, whose health continued to improve partly due to the emotional support and friendship Sarah provided. Margaret often said that helping Sarah was the best business decision Michael had ever made, not because of her professional contributions, but because of the joy and purpose she had brought to their family. Looking at Sarah's empty desk, with its carefully organized reports and handwritten notes about customer service improvements, Michael smiled. Tomorrow he would formally offer her the promotion, and he knew she would approach the new role with the same dedication, humility, and genuine care that had characterized everything she had done since joining the company. The young woman who had helped his mother when she was lost and frightened had found her own way home, and in doing so, had helped Michael remember what truly mattered in business and in life. 2 years after that life-changing encounter at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Sarah Martinez stood before a crowd of 500 people at the annual Chicago Community Service Awards. She had been selected to receive the Young Professional Excellence Award, not only for her remarkable professional achievements, but for the charitable foundation she had established to help homeless individuals transition back into stable employment and housing. As Sarah approached the podium, she caught sight of Michael and Margaret sitting in the front row, beaming with pride. Margaret's cancer treatment had been successful, and she had been in remission for over a year. The elderly woman who had once been lost and frightened at a bus stop was now the honorary chairperson of Sarah's foundation, using her own experience to advocate for better support systems for vulnerable community members. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah began, her voice clear and confident. 3 years ago I was homeless, hungry, and had lost hope that my life would ever improve. I was surviving day by day, trying to maintain my dignity while facing circumstances that seemed impossible to overcome. The audience was completely silent, captivated by her honest vulnerability. One cold February morning, I saw an elderly woman who was lost and scared, and I made a choice to help her even though I had very little to give. That decision changed both our lives in ways I could never have imagined. Sarah's eyes found Margaret in the crowd. Mrs. Margaret Chen taught me that day that kindness has no prerequisites. You don't have to be wealthy or successful to make a difference in someone's life. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer another person is simply your attention, your compassion, and your time, she continued, sharing how Margaret's son Michael had seen something in her that she had almost forgotten existed. Potential, character, and the ability to contribute meaningfully to the world. Sarah spoke about her journey from homeless young woman to director of customer experience at one of Chicago's most successful technology companies, but she emphasized that the real transformation had been internal. Michael Chen didn't just give me a job, Sarah explained. He gave me back my belief in myself and in the possibility that good things can happen to good people. But more importantly, he showed me that success comes with responsibility. The responsibility to lift others up as you climb. Sarah went on to describe the Sarah Martinez Foundation, which had helped over 200 homeless individuals find stable employment and housing in the past year. The foundation worked closely with local businesses to create internship and apprenticeship programs, providing not just job training but also mentoring, counseling, and practical support like professional clothing and temporary housing. We focus on what I call dignity-based assistance, Sarah explained. We don't offer charity, we offer opportunity. We help people develop skills, rebuild confidence, and reconnect with their own potential. Because I've learned that homelessness doesn't define a person's worth or capabilities. It's just a temporary circumstance that can be changed with the right support. The foundation had become Michael's newest passion project. Chen Innovations was the primary corporate sponsor, but Michael had also convinced dozens of other business leaders to participate by sharing Sarah's story and demonstrating the incredible return on investment that came from helping people reach their potential. After the ceremony, Michael hosted a celebration dinner at his home for Sarah, Margaret, and the foundation staff and volunteers. As the evening wound down, Michael found himself on the back patio with Sarah, looking out over his landscaped garden where Margaret was showing some of the younger foundation volunteers her prize-winning roses. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't helped my mother that day? Michael asked thoughtfully. Sarah considered the question. I think about it sometimes, but not in a regretful way. I helped her because it was right, not because I expected anything in return. If nothing had come of it, I would still be glad I did it. But everything did come of it, Michael pointed out. Your entire life trajectory changed because of that one decision to be kind. Actually, I think my life changed because of your decision to be kind, Sarah replied. I was already who I was that day, someone who would help a person in need. You were the one who chose to see potential in a homeless girl and take a risk on giving her a chance. Michael smiled. Maybe we're both right. Maybe kindness is contagious, and when one person chooses to care, it creates opportunities for others to do the same. As if summoned by their conversation, Margaret approached them, her face glowing with happiness. Sarah, dear, I was just telling the volunteers about our upcoming fundraising gala. I think we're going to exceed our goal of raising money for 50 new housing placements. Margaret, you've worked so hard on organizing that event, Sarah said gratefully. I couldn't ask for a better partner in this mission. Nonsense, Margaret replied with a wave of her hand. Helping you help others has given my life more purpose and joy than I've felt in years. Besides, I owe you a debt that can never be fully repaid. You don't owe me anything, Sarah protested. But Margaret held up her hand. You saved my life that day, not just by helping me get to my appointment, but by restoring my faith in human goodness. When you're facing cancer, it's easy to become cynical and afraid, but your kindness reminded me that there are still angels walking among us. Michael watched this exchange between the two women who had become so important to him, marveling at how a single act of compassion had created ripple effects that were still spreading outward. Sarah's foundation was just the beginning. Several other companies had started similar programs, inspired by the success story of the homeless girl who became a business leader. The local news had picked up Sarah's story, leading to speaking engagements at universities, business conferences, and community events where she shared her message about the power of second chances and the importance of looking beyond surface appearances to see people's true potential. As the evening concluded and guests began to leave, Sarah stood in Michael's driveway saying goodbye to foundation volunteers and supporters. Many of them were formerly homeless individuals who had been helped by the foundation and now volunteered their time to assist others facing similar challenges. One young man, recently hired by a local manufacturing company through the foundation's job placement program, approached Sarah with tears in his eyes. "Sarah, I just wanted to thank you again. 6 months ago, I was sleeping under a bridge. Tonight, I'm wearing a suit I bought with money from my own paycheck, and tomorrow I start training to become a supervisor at my job. You gave me hope when I had none left." Sarah hugged him warmly. "You did the hard work of rebuilding your life. I just helped create the opportunity. Now you can be an inspiration to others who are where you used to be." As the last guest departed, Sarah, Michael, and Margaret sat together on the front steps of the house, enjoying the warm summer evening and reflecting on how far they had all come. "You know," Margaret said quietly, "I used to think that getting lost that day was the worst thing that could have happened to me. Now I realize it was one of the best. It brought an angel into our lives and taught us all that sometimes our greatest blessings come disguised as challenges." Michael nodded in agreement. "Sarah, I've often wondered if you realize the full impact you've had. It's not just the people the foundation has helped, or even your success at the company. You've changed the way I think about business, about success, and about what really matters in life." Sarah looked at these two people who had become like family to her. "All I did was help someone who needed help. Everything else happened because both of you chose to see the best in me and give me chances I hadn't earned yet. You had earned them," Michael said firmly. "Character earns opportunities, even when circumstances try to hide it. You proved that day and every day since that true wealth isn't measured in money or possessions, but in how we treat others and what we do with whatever gifts and opportunities we're given." As they sat together under the stars, 3 lives forever intertwined by a moment of simple human kindness, they represented the best of what people could be for each other. Proof that compassion, opportunity, and hard work could transform not just individual lives, but entire communities. The homeless girl, who had once had nothing but kindness to offer, had become a beacon of hope for thousands of others, showing the world that everyone deserves a second chance, that character matters more than credentials, and that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest acts of caring for one another.